I'm going to show you how to set up MIDI in Repo, which is a typical desktop audio workstation. So in this software, I go to Options and Preferences, and then in the Repo Preferences sections, there is one on audio, and in that section, you can look at the MIDI devices. Now, by default, the devices that you've got available are disabled. So although they're connected in the control panel, they're disabled here. So what I need to do is right-click on each one that I want to enable and enable it here. And this is something that you need to be aware of, that often in software you do still have to enable your devices even though they're already connected and turned on. Okay, so let's just enable the output of the ones that we want. Don't worry too much that there seem to be quite a few graphites up there. This is because the keyboard can be used in several ways, but the top one is the one that I want. To test the MIDI, I'm going to insert a virtual instrument on a new track so that I can play this virtual instrument with one of my MIDI keyboards. So I'm going to choose this Cakewalk TTS1, which is just a standard MIDI sound set. And if I just preview the voice on the first channel, you hear it's got a piano sound. Now what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to change that by clicking here and changing the patch to a synth, just so that it doesn't confuse you, because obviously I've got a piano. I don't want you to think I'm playing the piano. I want you to know I'm playing the keyboard. So let's preview that. Okay, so that's all set up. Now all I need to do is arm that track for recording, and when I hit the notes on my keyboard, I should be able to trigger the sounds of that synth. So here goes. Unfortunately, I'm getting quite a bit of latency because I'm doing a voiceover at the same time as doing this, which is why that doesn't sound that great, but it does demonstrate how simple it is to get your keyboard set up and playing a virtual instrument. Let's have a look at MIDI input in Sibelius. MIDI is mostly used for entering notes. If I go to the Note Input tab, there is an Input Devices button. And if I press that, then it brings up this dialog box and I can have a look at the available input devices. Again, you can check and uncheck them to enable and disable them. So if I make the UM1 inactive and use the Samsung Graphite, what I can now do is just test it by pressing a note, and it's all working fine. So that's how I do my MIDI devices. Now that it's all set up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start entering a little tune using my Samsung Graphite keyboard, which I know I've enabled and got all set up. So if I just enter some notes, now move on to the left hand and enter another part. I'm literally just playing the notes in. I'm choosing the note values that I want, and now I can just play that back. So that is MIDI setup in Sibelius. Synthesia is a very simple bit of software which is aimed at helping you to learn how to play with a sort of graphical interface on your screen. And you see that I go to the settings on the home screen, and again my inputs are all listed here. They're all turned off at the moment. So what I'm going to do is choose which one I want to use. Again, I'm going to use the Samsung Graphite. I'm mainly using that one because it's actually on my desk, so it's very easy. I'm setting the range here, and then I go back. So that one's turned on now. I'm not going to turn any of the other ones on. I'm going to get the sound coming out of the built-in synth, just so that I can actually record it very easily. I could send it out to my piano if I wanted to. I'm not going to send it out to the Graphite because it doesn't make any sounds and it's not connected up to any sort of sound module. So that's how I want to set it up. So you see again, it's got a settings screen where you sort out the MIDI. And so you're probably starting to see a bit of a theme now. So let's have a go at using the software. What I have to do is make sure that I play the right note at the right time as I see it come down on the screen. Not too bad. Oh yes, full marks. So you see it's a very simple bit of software, but it is aimed at giving you some instant feedback on whether you're playing the right notes, and you can go on to do it in a practice format and recital format. Another quick example, this is Ignite software, which comes free with a lot of M Audio products. It took me a while to find the MIDI setup here, but it's there hidden behind this little button here where you can choose which keyboard you're using. So you might have to do a little bit of hunting to find your MIDI setup in the software. And there you go, I've chosen the Samsung Graphite and I can play the piano. And this software has some little piano players that are quite fun to play with fills and things. Right, my final example is Mixcraft. And here you go to File Preferences to find the MIDI setup. You see there it is, MIDI, and you can choose a default MIDI input device out of the ones that are available. And once again, you see the same familiar UM1 Samsung Graphite choice. So I'm going to choose the UM1 as the default, but on this instrument track here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separately, having selected an instrument, which in this case is an acoustic bass, I'm going to actually choose the graphite here. So it's not the default one, but it's the one I'm going to choose for this track. So I choose that there. Okay, and then I arm it, and if I start playing, I can play that bass line. So let's just summarise what we've looked at so far. In Windows, you need to install your USB keyboard or your interface according to the instructions before you do anything. Then you connect it and check in the Windows control panel that it all looks okay. Make sure that it is turned on and connected before you open up any software so that the software can easily find the device. And finally, in the software, find the MIDI preferences setup. It might be under the file menu, there might be an options menu, you might find there's a little button, you might find you have to move into a different tab or look in the manual if you're really desperate. But you definitely need to find the MIDI setup to make sure that your device is enabled and you've picked the one that you want. You may not have a choice, of course, but you may still need to enable it. And if you follow these steps, then I would say for 99% of the time, you're not going to have any problem at all.